Thanks for staying with us. It's now time to look at our economy. The World Bank warns that poverty may rise in Nigeria despite growth forecasts. That's what we're looking at. It has cautioned that Nigeria's poverty levels may worsen over the next 2 years despite projected moderate economic growth. In its Africa Pulse report, it cited falling oil prices and fragile reforms as threats to the government's safety nets amid easing the burden on citizens, or aimed at easing the burden on citizens. While Nigeria's economy is expected to grow by 3.6% in 2025 and 3.8% in 2026, the World Bank predicts poverty could increase by 3.6 percentage points. The report stresses that resource-rich countries like Nigeria are dragging compared to non-resource-based economies. With 19% of sub-Saharan Africa's poor residing in Nigeria, the challenge looms large. Though reforms are ongoing, experts warn that without faster diversification and stronger infrastructure investment, growth may not be enough to lift millions out of poverty. Our guest this morning is Mr. Muktar Mohammed, who is an economist. Good morning and welcome to the program, Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
The World Bank is at it again. The World Bank is at it again, telling us that in the next 2 years, poverty may increase in Nigeria. I thought we had already arrived at that bus stop right now. But let me hear you, hear your comments on this.
Well, I don't know why you think we've arrived there. Economic is a growth process, so it keeps growing. So I don't think we've arrived there. We are there. I mean, what it means is that we are there, but maybe we keep going there. A lot of people will join that that statistic again. So that's what I think the World Bank is trying to tell. It's not that we are not poor already. It's not that we don't have poor people there. But again, they're always trying to say that a lot of Nigerians will join that statistic again, which is very, very sad. But again, when you look at that report, and that's what we've been saying, building infrastructure, doing reforms, and does not add to, does not I mean, if you are building infrastructure, doing reform, and in the long term, does not bring your people out of poverty, create more jobs, whether you are doing rebasing of the economy or not, and does not put food on the table, does not create more jobs. It doesn't in any way help the people, and that is why sometimes you see a lot of the people will now go ahead and destroy some of this infrastructure that you have been put in place because of hunger. So we need to know that yes, reform is good. We need to know that growth is good. But even with this growth, if you look at Nigerian growth at the moment, with our target 1 trillion economy, we're just doing growth of 3.2 trillion. You should know that we are just living in a full paradise, thinking that we hit those growth. So I'm not surprised. We are an oil-driven economy. Oil is badly hit now. The price of crude is badly hit now. It's not even far below our budget benchmark, and there's not any way that we think it will get to our budget benchmark. We still have debts to pay, so it's not a good place for Nigeria to be. But like I said, reforms, if they continue with those reforms, like World Bank said, those reforms could be a turning point. Remember again, before this report, World Bank itself have said that Nigeria reforms, they support the reform is good, and then 2 days later they said, look, in spite of the reform, in spite of the infrastructure, I mean, the poverty level in Nigeria is going to go deeper and deeper.
But that's so scary, because it means that there is no confidence in these reforms, because we've been told that we are suffering now so that we will begin to reap the dividends in a short while. So 2 years is not enough. The next 2 years is not enough for us to begin to see a turnaround for our economy because of the reforms that are being put now in place. Does it mean there is no hope for these reforms now to begin to yield dividends within the next 2 years?
No, I don't think so. There's hope for the reform, and that's why they say it with ongoing reforms and infrastructure. It's not that there is no hope, but you also have to realize, looking at the population of Nigeria, via the infrastructure, via the reform. The reform in itself definitely it will start to create value. But again, when this result come, unfortunately, is the top, not from the bottom to the top. It's from the top, then we begin to find its way down to the bottom. I think that's where we have those challenges. And why am I saying that? I can give you one example of those reforms now that are yielding results, the removal of subsidy. If you see that price have definitely going down in terms of PMS, in terms of gas also. But when you look at that bad transportation system, you realize that the public transportation system price fare are still very high compared to even when the price of fuel was about 1,000 naira, 900 naira. Those prices remain, those prices have not changed. So you realize that it's those people that have cars, those people that are driving and are benefiting, those are the rich, so those are the type of thing I think the World Bank is trying to say. So before you begin to see those reforms trickle down into the average Nigeria, obviously the poor of the poor, then you need to do a lot. You need to do a lot. You need to create more jobs. You're not just build infrastructure. You look at infrastructure that will create jobs. You're not just looking at growth in terms of just oil growth. You're looking at growth in terms of agricultural output growth, how agriculture can add more to the GDP of the Nigerian economy, because that is where largely every Nigerian will benefit from, especially Nigerians in the rural area, knowing about it, between 70 to 75% of Nigerians stays in the rural area. So their main occupation, the main way of livelihood will be agriculture. So how do you diversify and make sure that agriculture is a key driver of your economy? Once you do that, then you are driving a lot of people out of the poverty level, and that takes a lot of work to be done.
Okay, so with the reports, 19% of sub-Saharan Africans are living in Nigeria right now. And of course, the poverty line is like people just keep getting there over and over again. And honestly, if we look at the current reality, the things you were able to afford maybe 2 years ago, it's not the same. And it just feels like it's the basic necessities that you can only afford. So you're trying to keep your head above water. Reforms are great. Reforms are to say, you know what, we want a policy shift, and hopefully in the future we'll start to see those changes come and we reap the dividends. But what are some bold decisions you think the government needs to start looking at right now to reverse this trend? Because I don't think any government should want their own citizens to be poor. Everybody needs to flourish together, and that's the only way, as a nation we can grow, because it's basically little drops of water that makes a mighty ocean. So what are the bold decisions that you think the government needs to be looking at right now to be able to reverse this poverty trajectory?
Like I said, first they have to look at way of being that non-oil sector, agriculture especially. We should stop paying lip service to it. We should really know what we want to do in terms of agriculture. How do we have peasant farmers? Then we also have commercial farmers. Not the type of politicians farmers that we have. Political farmers. By when those loans come, or most times it's only the politician that tends to get those loans. The real night farmers don't really get those loans, or they get.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. We can't hear you. Hello, Mr. Muktar. I think we just had a little glitch with his audio, but he'll try and fix that. But yeah, honestly, poverty line is... Hello, sir. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, we lost you for a bit, but please go ahead.
What I'm saying is that if you look at the poverty level, if we want to really take a bold step, then we need to do agriculture, because like I said, 75% of Nigerians in the rural area, their main occupation is agriculture. So we need to look at that and see how we can improve that sector. And improving that sector, then there's a lot of work to be done. One, funding. We need to see how we can fund agriculture. We shouldn't just fund agriculture by giving loans to the political farmers. We should give loans to the real farmers. What you see is that when they come to an agricultural scheme, the politicians tend to hijack it and then begin to give to their own political cronies also. And then there's always you need to belong to one place, then stop that. Then if you look at why agriculture has not thrived in some states, if you look at, if we are going to go basically state by state, I mean, it's been a long time. We saw this report from Nigerian Bureau of Statistics to tell us which state is the poorest state in Nigeria. We've not been getting that. And if you want to look at that, when you look at that figure based on the last time we had that figure, you realize that those states that are highly concentrated, that have high concentration of bandits, especially, and terrorists. And unfortunately, those states also are agricultural states. They are the ones that have a large amount of Nigerians that are poor. So those are part of what we should be looking at, security and funding to fund the agricultural sector, not just paying lip services to that sector. That sector is the sector that can create jobs and continuously create jobs, because everybody will definitely eat one thing or the other that is produced by that, and we have the population. So that for me is what the government should do: drive policy towards agriculture, drive policy towards infrastructure in the rural area. Again, that's another area they should look at, because when you are looking at infrastructural development, government tend to pride themselves on certain routes from Lagos to Port Harcourt. How many of those roads pass through the rural area, and how much of those population in the rural area this road pass through their town? Those are what government should look at. When you say you are building infrastructure, you should be building infrastructure through the rural area. That means you employ more of those rural people that are there, the rural youth, instead of them migrating to the urban city to create more chaos in the urban city. They will have jobs that they will do, and the cost of living will not be as expensive as it is when they leave their place to come to Lagos to do that same job. Those are the type of bold step I expect the government to take.
Fantastic. And honestly, with agriculture, we have the fertile lands, right? Imagine if we're doing a whole lot and we're able to feed ourselves and start to export. Because I think one of the issues that we have as a nation is because we're an importing nation. So everything we have to import it, and we're not exporting. So how else do you expect to generate revenue? But if you can ensure that, okay, agriculture is one aspect. But my fear is I don't want a situation whereby, you know, the way we were so heavily dependent on crude, we now move over to agriculture, and that's where our focus is, and we're not still thinking of other ways to diversify as well. Aside agriculture, maybe is there any other thing we should be looking at? And please do not say the tax reforms right now, because I know that a lot of people are saying, oh, that's the best way to generate revenue at the moment. But is there any other thing we should be looking at that we probably haven't had our eyes on yet?
Solid mineral.
That's a good one.
Solid mineral, that's a huge potential. Solid mineral. And the cause of banditry in Nigeria today is as a result of solid mineral. Where you see these banditries happening, the bandit lord kings are trying to control one solid mineral field or the other. So solid mineral is one area where we have one project that have been lying down there since the day I was born up to today. I've not seen the light of the day. Ajakuta Steel Complex,
yes.
We've talked about it. I've heard so much about Ajakuta Steel Complex. I will provide over 90% of the steel need of Nigeria. You can imagine if we are going to have 90% of our steel needs being met here. What that means is that most of these agricultural machineries that we are going to import into this country will be manufactured here, and that will bring the cost of production down, and that's what we can be able to compete favorable with African nations and also with globally. Because when you look at agriculture, like you pointed out, if we say we want to be into export, we need to look at the cost of our production too. If the cost of our production is very high, how do we export out of the country? Because that means you will not be competitive in bidding. A lot of people will not buy your product because of the expensive nature of your product. Even our current crude production, one barrel of crude that we produce is one of the most expensive in the world compared to what others are producing, like Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. So those are part of what we call about cost of production that need to drive down cost. And then you add more people buying, and then bring more value into your economies in terms of FX cash. So yes, solid mineral for me is one area we need to look at and see how we can benefit from that area. We've been seeing a lot of movement. I call it movement because I don't think it has resulted in any meaningful result. When you say that you have made 5 billion in naira, so 8 million, yeah, make 6 billion naira, so 8 million. For me, it's a giant play compared to what we should be making in that sector. That sector had a lot of noise during the Caribbean Fire when he was minister. He left and became a governor. The second minister that came in, we didn't hear so much noise. Today, now we have a man.
Wale Edun.
No, not Wale Edun. The minister for solid former. Forgotten his name now. I think he's the minister for solid media. Dele Alake.
Dele Alake
was calling Wale Edun.
Minister.
Dele Alake, sorry.
Yeah. Dele Alake is currently the current minister, and he's been doing a lot of movement. But we need to stop seeing movement. We need to see results, not just movement.
Well, I know one thing that we definitely need to not look into, because I think that's always the way the government goes. When they hear, oh, poverty, is looking at ways to give palliative. Right now, we need to be looking at things to do
rights, to give rights.
We need to be looking at sustainable.
You see, Rumi, there's nothing bad in palliative in any economy.
But if you're not doing anything that's sustainable,
but we need to look at palliative in the way of structural palliative to take people out of poverty.
Yes,
not palliative.
That's
handouts.
It's not handouts. You back there to depend more on me to give you more palliative.
Anyway, Mr. Muktar, sorry, it's just that we have to wrap up. It's just unfortunate that the most vocal voice for Ajaokuta Steel Complex has been shut down right now because she's on suspension and all that. The first problem she had was when she was making so much noise about Ajaokuta. And it's unfortunate also that our country does not even know what agriculture is, the definition of agriculture, because we have a Ministry of Agriculture and we have a Ministry of Livestock. They don't even know whether livestock and crop farming is the same agriculture. And
livestock is the political ministry, I can tell you that.
Anyway, but this is how much we can take on the program, on this segment, and eventually even the program. So we'd like to thank you for your time this morning. As always, it's a pleasure to have you join us for the show.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
Yeah. Well, we were talking to Mr. Muktar Mohammed, an economist, and we were looking at the predictions of the World Bank that Nigeria will become poorer. More people will join that school of poverty in the next 2 years. And, well, we hope that something drastic and better will happen to Nigeria and we don't have to fall below that poverty line.
Hopefully, fingers crossed at that. Anyways, this is how much we can take on the show today. Thank you so much for having the breakfast with us. My name is Rome Paulson.
And I am Nyamgul Agaji. Bye for now.
Good morning.